The trade deadline clock is ticking, and Brad Holmes has a decision to make. Does he stand pat with a Super Bowl contender, or does he just maybe pull the trigger on some reinforcements at edge or cornerback? While the armchair GM scream for splash.
Hands off Berry, skirts to the left side, breaks a tackle, and he will take it in. Touchdown!
Maybe what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that defense.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lion Chief Intelligence Officer of Lions Optimism, my man.
An amazing experience going through the clubhouse and the locker room there at Ford Field, walking down the tunnel where the players came in, where we broadcast live from the game last week. As I reached my hand under the tunnel wrap there, and was showing you the players lined up, walking underneath. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't had a chance to tour, please take the opportunity to sign up and do it. If that doesn't get your blood flowing, how about the opportunity to face a Minnesota Vikings team that's going to be starting a rookie quarterback for all intents and purposes, who, Dan's gonna I think put it out there that this guy is ill prepared to be able to fend off the Lions in the attack that they're going to put forth. But the best thing about it is, what makes a great team better? Competition. And I'll tell you, the secondary and the talent that we have starting is probably unrivaled. As we've talked about, 2 Pro Bowl safeties. We're going to dig into some of the moves that Brad Holmes has managed to maneuver here. Dan does a great job of researching this stuff, and he's going to dig into the specifics about what players we potentially are going to make vulnerable, the protections that we have for other players, and it's going to be a great show. So excited about talking a little bit about what Brad Holmes is intending to do, what he may do, and then getting into the Vikings game pre-show.
Yeah, I'm stoked about it. DK, welcome to the show as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dan Keener, and he's a guy I lean on for a lot of information that, quite frankly, is not my zone of genius. And one of these things is how we manage this trade deadline, sort of hate watching everything else and kind of rooting for all of these teams. It just,
Loser. Goddamn Packers. Did I say goddamn in the air?
Well, you did twice. We're going to find out.
We were having fun. We were having fun. It was a great weekend. The Eagles and the Packers are the only 2 teams that are in direct competition with the Lions at the top of the NFC that won. Yeah. We're going to be facing those guys in the playoffs at some point, but everyone else that lost, it was just fantastic. The Vikes, they stumbled obviously against Chargers. The Bears, they looked terrible.
49ers.
49ers, and probably the biggest one, that was a big one there. Didn't were the Bucks off? I don't remember if they were off or not.
No, the Bucks were not
Bucks
off.
Beat the
they
Saints.
played the Saints.
They beat the Saints. Okay, so but we have a game on them. For all intents and purposes, we have a half game lead on them to do the head to head. So, but yeah, it was great, and no pressure for us. We didn't have to go through a nail biter or worry about, who Brent was going to tap on the shoulder out on Brush Street and say, "Hey, dude, can you play cornerback?" It's, it was nice, and hopefully we come back healed up. Everyone's, back and healthy, and we got our intimidator back too. He's off his suspension.
Yes.
Yes. He's back for us. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've got the cavalry coming back, like we talked about. There's a lot of players that are coming back. We got news today that the practice window has opened for Rodrigo, which we're very excited about, amongst some other players. Terrion Arnold practicing today. Really good news. In reading our agenda, Brent, are you sending Wanda our agenda?
Insider
What is happening? What is happening? And of course, Alex says the Vikings are always scary as long as Jettas and Addison are available. Absolutely.
JJ.
Jefferson is absolutely a scary player. Always feels like he played a bit about that later. But I think what we want to do here, guys, first is let's move into this trade deadline, because we're a week away from a trade deadline. And so let me set the table for the topic du jour here, which is Brad Holmes, what he's done historically at the trade deadline, what he does, what types of players he brings in. Is he bringing in these players that are sort of depth pieces, need pieces. What are our need pieces right now? What are the names that everybody's floating out there? Guys, what are your, sort of positions that you feel are of need? What are the players that maybe, I'd love to hear from you, even Mike Terry in the back who's feeding us all kinds of information. Love to hear what you guys feel like should be our target from position perspective and maybe from a player perspective. But let me first pull up the when he was here in 2021, nothing happened from a trade deadline perspective. Maybe he's just trying to figure everything out. I don't know. Maybe there's just nobody available because we know Brad Holmes is the GOAT. So, 2021. I'm sorry, what?
I said maybe we just sucked and there's
maybe
nobody
we
that was
did.
worthwhile.
And
we were sellers, not buyers.
Yes, that's true. And then 2022 has a great tight end, albeit injured most of the time. And you can see we traded away Hawk and a 2023 fourth round pick, and in return we got a 2023 second round pick and a 2024 third round pick. I don't have the players that we got for that, but we're not going to go into that. DPJ didn't exactly pan out for the Lions, but it was, X receiver was a huge need for around our own picks there. We traded away our third round draft pick. Clear in terms of we're filling in with a huge deal. It's sort of like the list, a huge deal. It's sort of like the list throughout the week. This is feeling like Kelvin can kind of plug these guys in, and I think this is something that a lot of people are chiming in here on the chat about after last week, and Wanda mentioned it as well. The cornerback position, the safety position, our secondary position, and Kelvin Sheppard makes me feel a little bit more confident maybe about our secondary. We do need some depth there. I've got a guy, he plays cornerback in Seattle. It's kind of who I'm thinking might be the guy that we get. And so cornerback's my second, and then third is tackle. Now, trading for tackles in the NFL is not as easy as it's probably one of the hardest things you could do, right? But we do need some tackle depth, especially with Manu being out. So those are my three positions. So Dan, I'm going to roll it over to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think Holmes will go with this.
You're not going to like my thoughts.
Good.
I honestly think Holmes is, and this is obviously based on this upcoming game against the Vikings, I think he's going to stand pat.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to make a trade unless we have injuries that are long-term against the Vikings. The trade deadline is on the next day. It's the 4th, excuse me. So it's 2 days after the game. And here's why. The kids played well. I don't think you want to rely on them in long term. And I say kids because Arthur Millette is definitely not a kid.
Right.
So he's a little bit older veteran. But the fill-ins played well. Whiteside showed a lot of promise. And obviously some of the other guys that filled in did really well. Rock Ya-Sin, he's a gadget guy back there. He does well. But I don't think cornerback's going to be a need. We've got Arnold coming back this week. Most likely, they might hold him out another week, but I think that he'll be back this week. Reed is due back in the 10th.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's eligible to come back in the 10th, I should say. And we've been developing depth now, right? So these guys got a chance to play. We know we can count on Whiteside. Trey Flowers has been up twice. He's gotten more comfortable every time he's come up. Now, here's the thing with Trey Flowers: they can elevate him one more time for free, and then anytime after that he has to be signed to the active roster. So the rules for bringing guys up for elevations are you get 3 elevations per player, and if you try to bring them up again before the playoffs, they have to be signed to the active roster or they have to sit on your practice squad until the regular season ends, and then there's no limit on elevations during the playoffs.
So we've done that twice with
looking at I've got it updated out there. So Flowers has been up twice. Devin Cochran, the offensive lineman, has also been up twice.
Okay.
So those guys are in the same boat. We did have some elevations, Dwelly came up, Pittman came up, Monty Rice came up, but we've cut those guys.
Right.
So their clocks have been reset, and Mollett, I'm pretty sure because we signed him to the main roster, if he ever goes back, he will be reset because he did have an elevation as well. So, but quarterback, I think we're fine at. Edge would be the one place we possibly could do it, and if we do, it'd have to be someone that's a veteran, someone that can fill in very much like the Za'Darius did last year. He came in, he gave us like 3.5, 4 sacks for the last 7 weeks of the season, whichever. Stayed healthy, did well, was an anchor. And for all intents and purposes, it worked out. It didn't get us where we wanted to be, but it wasn't like it was a bad move or anything. So you're looking for guys that are on an expiring contract. So you mentioned Phillips. He's one of those guys. Phillips, he's going to be a tough one. Miami's in a fire sale. There's going to be a lot of teams pursuing him. I'm just not sure. If you want to invest which we don't have a fourth, I don't think. If you want to invest a fourth in him, maybe a fifth, that's likely you'll get that back in comp at the end of the year. He's probably going to re-sign or sign with somebody and get a contract that's going to generate a fourth
We've got a fourth
compensation pick potentially. So that might be something to consider because you can get the offset, but I still feel it's going to be not a linebacker hybrid rusher. That's just not our guy. We have a couple dudes, 2-3 guys who can already fill that role on the roster. I think it's going to be an anchor end if we do go that route. And I still going to look at the big man from New Orleans and Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan. He just fits the bill.
He's got a gray mane, I think, at this point. Right?
He does have a gray mane. He's like a supersized Idris Elba. So
yeah, I mean he's always a player I've always liked. Big community guy there in New Orleans, and plays hard. Yeah,
he's a great guy. He's a good player. He's a
terrible
good
football team. Not his fault.
Yeah, and he has a connection, right? I mean, he's been around Campbell. He was there probably for a good chunk of Campbell's time there. He's been there like 12 years or something like that.
Yeah.
He's still productive, and he could fill that role. He's not going to give you 20 sacks. He's not going to give you 10 sacks. But if he can give you 4 or 5 sacks, spell guys. Because, I mean, look, Davenport's coming back, whether anybody likes it or not. I mean, we may only get 10 snaps out of him, but he is coming back at some point, right? So
he may get a hangnail after 4 snaps, but he'll be
might
back.
Twist his ankle walking down.
Listen, and slipping. I know he wants to play. I just feel terrible about him. Just Davenport is just if he could just stay healthy, we know he's a great talent. Brent and Dan, I wanted this is a great comment here. I wanted to toss this in because this is kind of the example what I'm talking about with names. And so Alex talks about if Thibodeau is available. And this was the guy that we all felt like got the fumble on the tush push. That was not the fumble on the tush push. That's for another show. But Thibodeau, definitely recovered the fumble that was not the fumble in the game. Alex says we should go and get him. I know there's been different reports saying he's available and he isn't. If not him, go and get Phillips or try for Hendrickson. So, okay, this is what we're talking about names. Dan, you're going nuts. Your hat's about to fly off the top of your head. So I'll let you have this one, man.
Just leave it at this. Back when all we had was the draft, Thibodeau was a name that came up, and we were like, this guy, no turds policy. He was at, I believe it was at Oregon, right? Was it Oregon or was
and if the Lions had not selected Hutchinson, would they even picked Thibodeau?
Correct.
Yep, right.
Thibodeau, the guy had so many red flags, not necessarily like criminal or anything like that. There was flags about his attitude, about his willingness to play. If he got a big payday, would he quit? Now, granted, kind of like Micah Parsons, he had a ton of red flags too. He's been highly productive here in the NFL, but I just don't see him. I don't see the Lions going and getting a big name. We have to pay Hutch still. We've got, I think we've got $25.5 million left in our cap this year.
Yep.
Some of that still needs to cover any expenses we have. They're going to extend somebody and give them some of this money or roll it forward to next year. Because Hutch is signed next year. He's on his 5th-year option, right? But they'll extend him over and above that, and that'll be the starting point is that money. So he'll be the highest paid defender by the end of the year or early next year. But I just don't see Thibodeau as a legitimate option. You know, if they want to go all in and they feel like that's what they need, and again, if Hutch gets hurt, God forbid, then yes, could be in play. But you're going to give up a first round pick. You're going to have to give up a ton of money to re-sign the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see it happening unless they're absolutely desperate. And he's the need to keep the Super Bowl train potentially running.
Brent, I want to let you jump in here in terms of edge rushers. Any thoughts? I mean, is edge rusher your number one?
I was thinking Dan was going to say make a trade, and I was prepared to say, which I stand by, that I don't think Brad Holmes is going to make a trade because I believe that the Lions feel like they have the best roster in the NFL, and we're getting healthier and healthier. We're going to end up losing some players. Which I hope we can get to that analysis tonight to talk about, the risk of losing some of the players. Back to Wanda's question about what players are at risk, but you have to have a trading partner.
That's right.
I don't see Seattle being in the situation that they're in, where they're competing for the best record in the NFC and winning the division.
Good team, though.
I don't see them being necessarily a willing partner. So, looking at the teams, as I was doing my review of this stuff over the past week, I was looking at, Tennessee, looking at Miami, the Jets, Cleveland, and the Raiders, and what, a couple names that jumped out to me. Three names specifically: Arden Key of Tennessee. Mike hit on it. He was talking about Arden Key in the background. I think Arden Key would be a really, really good rental.
Fourth round pick is kind of what Mike's thinking.
Yeah, I think that's certainly in the range of what the Lions could swing to get him. Look, the teams are going to be looking to rebuild. They're going to be looking to stockpile picks, and I think you could convince the Titans to part with Arden Key for a fourth rounder. Another name that comes out that he has lost a little bit of his explosiveness with Miami. Jalen Phillips, he's been injured a bit, but he's still a physical specimen. You put him in on obvious pass rushing situations, and you don't force him to be in there with AQM and Hutch starting and playing the majority of the snaps. I think he becomes an option for the Lions. Again, fourth round pick, I think certainly would be something that teams would be attracted by in the Dolphins situation. And then lastly, I agree with Dan wholeheartedly on the Saints defensive end, but Jermaine Johnson, the Jets edge, I think he could come in and bring the same kind of explosiveness in limited situations that could make a real difference in those games against the elite talent, against the elite teams like the Packers, the Eagles, the Chiefs. Those teams that we're going to have to put pressure off the edge playing. We can beat a lot of teams with the existing core and the existing players, but we saw what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. We have to be able to roll defensive players on the edge and up the middle in the game fresh, keeping them fresh, and wear that Eagles or that Chiefs offensive line down. And what we didn't see when we played in Kansas City a couple weeks ago, and I'm just looking ahead to potential matchups against the Chiefs and the Bills, is the ability to put pressure up the middle and off the edge and clean up those sacks when the quarterback's forced to make decisive moves because of that pressure that Aleem McNeil and our defensive tackles can put on quarterbacks. So those are four names. Sutton, Phillips, I think are ripe targets for us to look at. So if I'm Brad Holmes, I'm looking to see who I can get for a fifth round pick, fourth round pick maybe, and see if we can't shore up that defensive end position heading into this push in the season. We got the Vikings this week, and I'm not dismissing the Vikings, but the Vikings are not the Vikings of last year, losing their quarterback and all the injuries that they've had. Their offensive line changes that they've made have been a disaster for them. I feel bad for Carson Wentz. I felt bad for JJ McCarthy a few weeks ago when he was getting pummeled, absolutely pummeled. And Dan loves to talk about Joey Harrington and the reason for his demise in Detroit. I think JJ McCarthy is directly in the same sort of risk, getting his brains beat out and not being able to develop. And so, the worst thing that could happen for the Vikings is that they're going to throw him back out there, and it is going to be the noise in Ford Field. The fans are going to be absolutely ravenous, and the Lions are going to be looking to wipe the Vikings out as quickly as they can, and then look towards those big matchups coming up against Philadelphia, Washington, and then Green Bay on Thanksgiving. Not to look past the Giants, of course, but the season is going to be decided over these next 5 weeks where the Lions are going to finish. And as Brad Holmes has always said, late in the season is key. He's looking to build a team that can compete late in the season. And then Dan Campbell loves to talk about a lot's going to be sorted out. He said it again in his press conference today. A lot's going to be sorted out in this next month in these crucial games.
Dan, I know you're chomping a Titans edge that we should be targeting.
Yeah, I think the edge that if we want to go and raid the Titans, I think they go after Draymond Jones. He is a Denver guy. He was drafted by Denver. He was highly productive with them back in the day. But the biggest thing about him is he's going to be cheap. I mean, he's got a base salary of $1.9 million. Divide that by I don't know how many games are left. We're on week 9, right? So 8 games.
Half of
Half of it. So he's got about 800K, 900K left on his remaining contract. But the biggest thing, he's only going to cost about a 6th or a 7th round pick or a swap of 6th or 5ths or something. He's not going to cost a lot. Highly productive, pretty healthy. He's got very similar stats to Key if you look at it. Now he provides a different position. He's kind of a weak side, wide side linebacker role for them. I think they've called it Key is a strong side linebacker for them, and Draymond is the weak side. Well, the thing is they run a 3-4, so these guys are essentially the old New England Trey Flowers type role, right?
Rush outside
linebacker. But the thing with Jones is he's big. He's 6'3" and he's 285. He's not 260.
Okay.
He's not 259, something like that, which a lot of these guys are, right? I think Phillips is probably a little bit on the lighter side, probably in the high 260s. He's a big dude. So he can play the edge. He can do stand up. He's a vet. That would be the guy I would target for the Titans instead of Arden Key because again, he's a guy that if it pans out and he kind of plays well, he'd be a guy that could be around for a few more years. He's only, I think, 28, 9.
You know what,
that.
Dan, though, I'm noticing here.
Well, what I was looking at, Chris, was the diminishing number of sacks over the last few years. Now, and I'll give you this, Dan. Those maybe contributed. The primary contributor may be the team. Is not
yeah,
very
you got to
good.
believe they're looking at
you'll
everything.
come into a situation in Detroit where you're winning and you put this guy in an obvious passing situation.
But you're not gonna if a guy's pulling down 10 sacks, you're not gonna get him. Period. I mean, it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg.
Right.
You got to target. You have a certain
value
role, and the value exactly, Brad. You have a value and a role that you're targeting, and this guy, much like Cam Jordan. They fit that role for different reasons. He's a little bit younger still, but he has diminishing returns, but he's still a competent player. Jordan's, he's older guy. That's why you're going to get the value out of him. You know what you're going to get with that guy, right? So same with Jones. He played really well for Denver. Their defenses have been some of the best defenses in the NFL over the last 10, 12 years, right? So he'd be a guy I would say instead of maybe Arden Key, because Arden's it's going to cost you more up front. And maybe you'll get better return on the back end. But I just think this would, and you also are going to probably have to compete with New England if they start winning. They're going to be wanting to get guys. Draymond Jones is not a Tennessee guy from when New England's head coach was there, right? Vrabel wasn't, I don't think Jones was there when Vrabel was there. Arden Key was a draft pick of Vrabel's, I believe. So, or at least drafted, or Mike shaking his head no. I think they overlapped. How about that? Is that better? Is that better, Mike? They overlapped at least 2 years. So anyway, the point being is that I think that you're not going to have as much competition for a Draymond Jones. And I think your return is going to be very similar to an Arden Key or a Jalen Phillips.
Well, Arden Key's in the final year of a contract. I mean, it's a contract year. He had 12 and a half sacks. So when you mentioned, over the last 2 seasons, but when you mentioned all the points about Draymond Jones and the strengths of it, I really do think that you can make the same argument for Arden Key. that he's going to be on an expiring contract. He's 6'5". He's very sturdy, and the we go back to the point that we made though. Do the Lions even make a trade? The value's got to be there. So 100% agree with you that the Lions have to get value in acquiring any of these players. And so key is I would say on a short list. Whether he's on the bottom of the short list or near the top of the short list, I guess that's up to Brad Holmes to decide. But every one of these players would give the Lions depth and the ability to put pressure on quarterbacks in obvious pass rushing situations, which we lack today. And no offense to AQM. AQM would be strengthened by a move like this because AQM has burst and can get to the quarterback.
Agree.
And if you're able, absolutely situational, the same way that any of these guys that would come in would play for the Lions, they'd play a situational pass rush role. And I'm not ever going to be opposed to putting depth on the edge on the roster, especially during this run that we're going to have here.
Guys, before we jump here, this is great. Alex, thank you so much for being here tonight, because I think this is something we're all forgetting about. We're all looking at these shiny objects on other teams, and we forgot we've got a player that we drafted that is an edge rusher that's going to be coming back after injury. And so Alex says, what happened to Hassanin? Are we going to be bringing him back after his? Nobody knows better about the status of Ahmed Hassanin than Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and what's happening there. So, guys, I mean, I was very excited about this player. Didn't have a fantastic preseason. I was showed flashes, I think, of that, and is certainly working back to be there from injury. Any thoughts here on Ahmed Hassanin and the first Egyptian NFL player, from what I understand, for the
Chris,
Lions?
I think when you and I went to Atlanta to watch the Lions and the Falcons game, Hassanin's not ready for prime time. No offense to him, he may very well end up being a fantastic situational pass rusher like James Houston was for the Lions. I can't dismiss the possibility of him developing and next year coming in, but I just can't see this year Hassanin coming in and making any kind of an impact.
He's missed too much time.
He's missed too much time, and I will tell you, he would be in over his skis, out over his skis, if he were to be brought in late in the season and expected to come in and provide any kind of pass rush off the edge. And when you're playing the Eagles and you're playing the Packers and getting into this late season push, but I fully expect the Lions to re-sign him, put him in some situation to where he's stashed, so that we can retain rights to him next year. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that were the case. And I'm rooting for the guy. I loved watching him play at Boise State.
Easy to root
I was
for.
out in California, in Napa Valley, when the playoff games were going on, and I was sitting there watching this guy. He is a heart and soul, pure Dan Campbell kind of player, and I'm hoping that we can resign him and stash him.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree with what Brent said. He's not going to help anybody this year. He's missed too much time. He wasn't prepared yet, when he came in and when he was playing. And he's only been lifting. He's been basically training, to return from a torn pec or whatever it was. We still don't know the extent of it. The Lions clearly took care of him and made it right, with the injury settlement. So he's either going to get signed to our practice squad down the road, or if he's not ready by the end of the year, he'll get a futures contract from the Lions almost assuredly. Brad doesn't like to give up on draft picks, and it was surprised he was cut instead of just thrown on injury reserve for the year. So I think they feel like he will be back at some point, and they'll get some rep. They just want to get him in there and get him some time in camp and practice, or not camp, but practicing on the practice squad or whichever. If he pops, he pops. Maybe he sees the light. I mean, Houston surprised us, right? He came in and played well, but nobody really knew who the guy was. They cut him loose and let him be himself and didn't make him think. And then the next year they tried to make him think by making him an outside linebacker, Aaron Glenn, moron. trying to make him cover guys
Out
instead of
loud
just letting
voice,
him
Dan.
rush the passer. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the same thing happened when the kid went from Florida State to where was he at? He's with Deion, Jacksonville State or wherever he went. They tried to make him an all encompassing linebacker at Florida State. As soon as he went over and started playing for Deion, they said, hand in the dirt, rush the passer. The guy was a freaking all-star in JUCO or HBCU, whatever league they were in,
Yep. HBCU, yeah.
And that's what the Lions did. They said rush the passer, and he did great. And then when they tried to convert him and make him more of an all-down linebacker, he started to struggle. And now I don't know where he's at now, but I think he's doing decent again. He's fairly productive. Whoever picked him up, he's got a few sacks and stuff. So good for him. He's a good kid too. I like to see him succeed. So.
Hey, what I think is more likely, Chris, back to your original question on this topic, I think it's more likely the Lions are going to end up having to do something with healthy players that they don't want to do. We are going to find ourselves here very quickly in an embarrassment of riches, if you will, a defensive tackle, linebacker. Who are you going to end up replacing when you
I got
get
a list.
when you get Rodrigo back and you get all these defensive linemen back and our secondary back? We are more likely to have to end up making players vulnerable than we'd want to make vulnerable given the embarrassment of riches that we're going to have.
So
There's going to be 5 or 6 players that are impacted by all of these activations as players are coming back from the injured list.
So keep this in mind. There's a bottom of the roster and depth guys for a reason,
Churn.
right?
Yep.
The reason these guys were on the team to begin with is they were better players than the guys that we had to get to backfill them due to injury. So, right now we only have 5 linebackers on the active roster. So, with Cunningham going down, it was Cunningham, right? They just got injured
Cunningham,
on injured
yep.
reserve. Yep. So
Yep.
you got Barnes, you got Campbell and Anzalone and Barnes, you got Stewart and you've got Nowoski. That is
And
it.
Stewart. Yep.
That is it.
And
So
Cunningham was a special teams ace like Nowoski and
yeah.
Stewart. Yeah.
So most likely Rodriguez is going to get activated for the game against the Vikings. He'll be the 6th linebacker. We have one open spot on our practice squad with them kicking Kendall Fuller off today. That is a veteran practice squad slot. Now that could be used by a rookie, right? Or an under 9 game guy. But we do have 4 veteran slots, and he was one of those 4 veteran slots. So most likely, and I guess we just get right into this now, most likely on the transitions, you're going to see that with Arnold coming back, you're probably going to see, we don't know what Maddox's status is, but I don't think he was one of the guys that was sitting out. So with Arnold and Maddox both back, most likely Arthur Maulet's going to get cut. They're going to they're going to activate Rodrigo, and Maulet's going to backfill that veteran spot on our practice squad for the time being. But when we have guys like Davenport eventually come back,
And DJ.
And DJ Reed, when Reed comes back, then to your point, who's going to get cut? Well, Maddox is the next guy up on the depth chart, right? He's the next cornerback up. He's not going to get cut. But look at our roster. We've got 5 running backs right now. So Reynolds is hurt. Maybe they throw him on IR. Vaki
he was practicing on the
finally.
sidelines today, but Vaki's going to be back. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they get Reynolds in the game and then they trade him. If they believe in Sailors and Vaki,
I think Sailors is the odd man out there. I mean, I like Sailors, but what is he doing?
Vaki's played a grand total of about 14 snaps.
Vaki's better kick returner.
If that guy's groin flares up, they're just going to throw him on IR again, right? But so those are the guys. You're asking who do we have to cut or move down? Well, it's Vaki, Sailors, Reynolds from the running back spot, most likely Sailors, but he hasn't really done anything other than kick return, so he's definitely a candidate to make it back without issue. On the D line, you've got Quentin Jefferson and Pat O'Connor as your depth D tackles, but this Wingo dude, you either got to and I can't say the shit word. You
Yeah.
either got shit or get off
Get
the
off the
pot with
pot,
this guy.
right? I knew
He's
that was coming.
he's either happening or he's not happening. Same thing with the guys. You know, you got Pascal, and you feel bad for him. He's obviously has
There's
some sort
something,
of
yeah. There's something
pre-existing
going on
conditions.
personal. I don't know what it
cancer.
is with Pascal.
He had skin cancer and
Yeah,
stuff. He's on
cancer.
the NFI. So I mean, the other guy, they just haven't panned out. I mean, there's a reason Tyreek Williams was their number 1 overall pick, because Brad was trying to rectify some mistakes he made in the second and third round the last few years.
Mhm.
McNeil and Williams at the D tackles for the foreseeable future is an amazing combo, right?
Yep.
But there are plenty of guys that we can get rid of down at the bottom to handle the guys that are coming back. And you know, I don't think Whiteside's going to stand a chance of getting cut and going back to the practice squad. I think, to your point, that's the guy you were probably looking at, Brent. He played too well. In national TV, you're breaking up, you know, national broadcasts in that game. You're breaking up passes. You're just, don't look out of place against some of the best wide receivers, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's not going to make it um, through the waiver claim. But guy like Millette, he's an older vet. He doesn't have to go through waivers. You cut him, you can sign him the next day to your practice squad if someone else doesn't offer him a contract onto their practice squad that he decides to take, or onto an active roster. So that's where you got to look at these guys and know that, you know, I think, Chris, you were talking about this in our pregame or in our pre-show
Yep.
time frame. It's like, what are the rules? Well, the rules are guys that are not vested veterans, they got to go through the claim process. So if you cut one of those guys, you're probably going to lose them if they've been showing something. Sailors hasn't really shown anything. So if he gets claimed, he gets claimed. Whatever. You know, you'll find another running back. They're a dime a dozen.
Yeah,
but a guy like
it would be one thing
Yeah,
if
go ahead.
Sailors had actually, you know, had 2 or 3 great kick returns, right? Or they felt confident enough in him to spell, you know, one of the RBs, you know, even late in games. Is he showing us anything? He had some. Listen, he showed out late in preseason, and you know, didn't screw up on any kick returns or anything. But it's like, you know what? You know, he got
In
side.
Tampa.
Yeah, the block in Tampa. Thank you.
Wow.
That
One of my
block in Tampa
favorite
is to spring Amon-Ra for that touchdown along the sidelines. And you know, so that's, but like Sailors is not making those plays. He's just kind of, you know, feeling like a
he's
UFL
filling in.
players, but not, you know, up Wingo, because it's like if I bring up Wingo, Dan gets this look on his face, you know, so we can't do that. And you know, it's a bit of an embarrassment of riches. Like, this is what happens when you have good football teams.
You said elite, you're supposed to drink.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry.
Said
Hang on. Here we go. And your blue Kool-Aid of choice. But when you have good football teams, sometimes you got to let players that you used to like in 2007, right? Doing nothing, right? Remember those years when we had Rod Marinelli as coach? Now we have really good players that when we let go, other teams pick them up and they end up being, you know, decent NFL players. That's what happens when you have good football teams. Alex Middleton says, I like this year's pass rush. We didn't have AQM doing what he's doing. You know, we didn't have we don't have Levi O this year, which is you know, the fact that we're able to do this. Listen, we went this whole show without bringing up Aleem McNeil and what Aleem McNeil does for our pass rush. And I think he just absolutely in Tampa was a major factor to why we had so many pressures.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
Hey,
he made everybody better.
Can I ask you guys a question?
No.
Who is fifth in the who yeah, right. Who is fifth in the NFL overall in team sacks? The Detroit Lions.
I was going to say
The Detroit
I thought we were
Lions
third.
are fifth in the NFL. Well, we had a bye week and teams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teams
All
played and the Browns passed us by 1 and the Bucks are at 25 and we're still at 23. But the point is, I am absolutely ecstatic with what we have been able to do.
Yeah.
Would I like it to be better? I agree with Alex. And I said it earlier. I would love to get all the defensive ends and outside linebackers that the Lions can get at this point to close the season out, because I think that's going to be a real differentiator in this run. our ability here to put pressure on the quarterback, and I get it that every show you watch, Woodward Sports, Crunch Time, all of those folks, they talk about this
Great
all the
shows.
time. Yeah, yeah, and I'm giving them kudos here. I hope you know. They talk about how frustrated they are that Brad Holmes didn't add a defensive end or rush outside linebacker. And I have the sort of a different perspective. You call me the intelligence officer and optimism head. And the funny thing is that I am absolutely nervous about our ability when we're playing those elite teams to put pressure on the quarterback. I am not diminishing, the complaints that folks have about the Lions' lack of adding to the pass rush. And so, at the end of the argument or debate about it, I concede that the Lions could use an upgrade at the position. But success breeds success, right? And we've had AQM have an amazing season. He's kind of disappeared a little bit at times. The last couple games, he had a great game, then he kind of disappears. I know he's struggling with a little bit of a gimpy knee, according to reports. But wouldn't we all love for the Lions to add a defensive end or a rush outside linebacker for this stretch run?
So you don't feel like Tyrus Wheat is the guy?
No.
I mean,
So
No.
Wheat and Lacey's going to get cut when Davenport comes back.
Mhm.
Let's just be honest, right? He hasn't done anything. Wheat has 1.5 sacks, which is his highest sack contribution ever in a year. But the thing about it is I know what you're saying, but last year, we lost Hutch,
Yep.
but we were still productive. When we lost McNeil, that's when we started going downhill.
Yep.
Amen.
And McNeil, if you guys look at this, going into that Tampa game, we had one of the highest amount of pressures in the NFL, but we had the longest time to generate that pressure. It's like 2.4 seconds. It was or 2.8 or something like that. It was way down the list, right? If you guys watch that Tampa game, how often was McNeil and then whoever was next to him, whether it was Reeder or Tyleek or whoever, those guys, him up the middle is a totally different dynamic because now it's not just those ends like Raptors coming in from the sides anymore. You got to worry about this guy coming up the middle.
Yes.
And you can't just step up. Because if you step up, you're going to step up either into one of the big boys in Reeder or Williams, or McNeil's going to grab you, or one of those two defensive ends, whoever it is, 3-4 defensive ends we have, are going to come in from the side and get you. And if you happen to make it through them, then you've got speedy backers and Campbell, Barnes, and Anzalone who pretty much for the most part mitigate any running that the quarterbacks have done up the middle. Now they've gotten a free a few times to the outside, which happens, because they're in a zone or whatever. But I'm pretty confident with McNeil back. Again, it's all predicated on health. These guys stay healthy, our defensive line should be fine. Davenport coming back, if we start using him, he was actually playing pretty well at the start of the season, again, until he got hurt. He comes back, whatever he can give us, he gives us. To me, it's bonus, it's house money. We're not counting on him. But if we get him, he's clearly a better overall player than Weed or Lacey or even Muhammad at this point, right? But I'm okay right now. Now, if you have the chance to grab somebody to be a difference maker that guarantees you, puts you over the top, or you absolutely have to because you're going to lose, like last year, we went and got Za'Darius, but we got him. Didn't we get him the week that Hutch got hurt, like before Hutch got hurt?
It was a couple weeks after.
Oh, we sent him after. Okay, so that was our fix, and it wasn't a big splash move, obviously.
It was
right?
November 5th, and I'm trying to look up the date that
I think Hutch got hurt in October.
Game
October.
5. Yeah, he got hurt in game 5 or 6 against Dallas.
So I just feel like it
would have been
it's robbing from one to pay the Thomas Harper, in case Kirby goes down.
McNeil can play edge in a pinch. O'Connor can play edge in a pinch. Wingo could play edge.
Oh wait, you have positive things to say about Mekhi Wingo
He
right
rolled
now?
his eyes.
Well,
You
Wingo
had to
is
see the eye roll. He
he's
went,
6'2", 288.
he did a
and
Rodney Dangerfield.
He's more of a 3-4 defensive end than he is a big boy, right? But we actually have 4 active defensive ends right now. You forgot about Lacey and Wheat, in addition to Hutch and AQM. So
It's
that's our
not
4
hard to
edges.
forget.
And you've got 2 or 3 guys that can actually play it as needed, or you can just drop. You may mention, but you can drop Barnes down there. I mean, Barnes is not a small guy as a linebacker. He's got good size. He's
Nowoski did it last year,
240.
late in the year.
Yep.
Nowoski, yep.
Nowoski made some sacks.
And
Yep.
so we have guys that can do it. I mean, you can even put Campbell at stand-up edge if you want to. So I think we're covered. But again, it boils down to do you want to take that shot, right? I mean,
Yep.
we see the Eagles. They make those trades. Howie Roseman's he's a crazy fool, right? That guy, he's just going to go out and wheel and deal constantly and try and, do whatever he can do. The 49ers, they made it. Who did they pick up when
They picked up Young.
no, that was last year.
I thought you were talking about last year. Sorry.
No. This year, didn't they lose Bosa for the year?
They did. I don't remember that
They picked somebody up, but again, there's just not a lot of like top tier edges available. You're going to pay massive amounts, and as teams approach the deadline, there's going to be more and more bidding wars for them. I mean, we saw, and I don't even really consider Micah Parsons he's a rushing linebacker. To me, he's kind of I wouldn't say he's a one-trick pony, but that's kind of his shtick, right? I mean,
run at him and see, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it, Brent. If Penny and him are going at it, he's going to beat Penny every once in a while on a swim or something. He's so quick. But if you get locked up and try and run at him, he's going to take himself out of the play, and Gibbs will be past him before he even realizes it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we're okay right now, but we'll see after the Vikings game.
I think you hit on the important point, Dan. You didn't say it, but scheme, and there's 2 ways, right? You've either got players that like Hutch that can line up, McNeil, Reeder, those. I love our defensive line, our starting defensive line, and the depth at defensive tackle, and you can do a lot with scheme, but it's one of those situations where would it be nice to have another defensive end that can just line up and beat an offensive tackle? Sure, they don't grow on trees though. And so at the end of the day, I think, I still stand by after all the debate that we've had here about the topic, I still stand by the fact that I don't think that Brad necessarily makes a play for defensive end. As you said, Dan, Hutch's injury last year put us on the path to having to do it. And then we just kept losing player after player. And the defense really fell off the cliff, except for the Vikings game, fell off the cliff after, you lose Aleem McNeil in that December game. Early December, when you lose Aleem McNeil, you suddenly find yourself in a situation to where you have to make a trade. And barring an injury to Hutch or somebody like that, I just don't see us making a trade, a big splash trade for a defensive end other than a potential situational pass rusher. And if you can get him for a 5th, 6th round pick, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Holmes pulled something like that off, though he's quite masterful. And then somehow getting another 7th in return, right, where he can maneuver his way again on draft day and trade 3 6 and get a receiver that he wanted.
Guys, we went almost this whole show. We haven't even talked about the upcoming game against the divisional rival Minnesota Vikings. By the way, Brent, are you going to be at the game in Detroit against the Vikes?
No, I have to make a business trip.
Okay,
unfortunately, but we'll do an on location pregame for the next home game.
So let's talk about this really quickly. I want to roll this over to you guys. Let's try not to get thorny here, because I know there are conversations about the quarterback, the current starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, because he did play for a certain college and did beat another certain college for a national championship run. And we just want to, we want to put that aside. And we want to talk about something we all have commonality for, and that is our Detroit Lions and going up against JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. I don't even know what the spread is. And I think to a man, I'm sorry, what?
Mike? I haven't pulled it yet either.
Yeah.
It's got to be at least 5 or 6 points.
Right.
Minimum.
And so, I mean, I haven't talked to one person that feels like, Lions fans aside, I mean, talking to everybody just doesn't feel great about the vibes in Minnesota. The offensive line we talked about, they haven't been able to really run the ball effectively. Certainly not the team that they were last year. Having quarterback issues, obviously they wanted McCarthy to be the guy. McCarthy really had maybe 2 quarters where he played the quarterback like they wanted him to play. And he got hurt, obviously, and now going to Detroit, playing in that 120 decibel. Yes, I said that, Chiefs fans. 120 decibels in Ford Field. And so this is going to be a very tough game for the Minnesota Vikings with everything that's going on. Guys, do you feel like Minnesota, with all of that going on, Kevin O'Connell is a really good football coach. I'm no question is a good football coach.
He's a really good coach.
He threw freaking Wentz up to the freaking Lions last week. That's almost criminal what he did to Wentz. That guy should not have ever been on that field. Everybody on that team needs to look themselves in the mirror for that. Okay. That guy had no business playing in that game when they were down by that many points.
But anyway, yeah, but Dan, you've got the
Did
tail.
Did you see the quarterback?
You've got the tail of the tape.
Did you see the? It was like a water boy. I'm sorry, Chris. It was like the water boy. He's like this. Who's my guy that I'm going to kick the ball to? That backup quarterback. It would have been an absolute disaster. And so before Dan rolls in on this, and I'll come back to you, Chris, and respond to your question. But the spread's 8.5 points. So Dan.
Yeah. So I will call your attention to the green on the chart, and you'll notice the green on the left side. That is who has the higher or better ranking. That is offense on the left of the black line. That's defense on the right. And we all know the Vikings offense is a mess. And let's be honest, a lot of it is due to their injury situation. They were down 3 offensive linemen over in London. They got the short end of the stick, got to play in London twice. Lucky them. Then London once? London Ireland. Twice. And they lost. What's that?
Somebody played in London.
Somebody was over
Ireland.
in Germany or Ireland. Yeah. Anyway, UK. And anyway, they were down 3 linemen. McCarthy wasn't playing. Wentz was playing fairly well for them, and then the wheels fell off. He finally got exposed. Their offense is a mess. They're not really running the ball well. They've got Jefferson and Addison, and they're not really throwing the ball well. Now, supposedly they're getting Darisaw. He played some last week. They might be getting both offensive tackles back this week for our game. But again, how effective are they going to be? Because last week, Mike Evans or 2 weeks ago, we had, Mike Evans was back and Olave, or not Olave, who's, I can't pronounce his name, but he's a Ohio State guy, Ekuban anyway.
Ibuka?
Both those guys, what's that?
Ibuka,
thank you.
Ibuka.
Yeah. So both those guys had hamstring injuries. Clearly, they were not overly effective playing through that injury, So we'll see how their line holds up, how the running game holds up. Now their defense is a little bit better. Now the Lions have had their share of, we got beat up by the Chiefs, we got beat up by the Packers. That hasn't helped our numbers, but our running defense is pretty good. Sacks, pressures, we're better than they are. Their rush defense is better than ours, but I just don't think anybody's had to actually run on them when they can pass on them. So, it's just one of those things where, the tail of the tape, on paper, we are absolutely a better team. And in healthy, we are probably even better than these guys. So, it's really going to be about McCarthy. He's very inexperienced. A lot of the stuff he got away with at Michigan, he made so many plays where he just was kind of like throwing off schedule, rolling out, just winging it down the field, and guys were making plays for him and stuff. That doesn't really work in the NFL. I mean, you'll get away with that a few times, but then you're going to have Barnes is going to pick you off, or, a safety branch or somebody's going to pick you off. And with a bum ankle, that's one of his attributes, is being able to run away from stuff. I just don't know where he's at health-wise. And honestly, if you read the Minnesota folks, they're like, they think that they've just been hiding him because they realized they made a mistake drafting him as high as they did. I mean, he was probably a third or fourth round pick based on his performance in college. Yes, he won the national title, but he won it due to just how they schemed it. I mean, Harbaugh, they ran the ball at the end of the year. They didn't put the ball in his hands to go out and win any titles. He had a good game against Alabama because he had like 3 weeks to prepare for him, but any other game they didn't have a lot of time to prepare. They just ran it down their throats, you know. So we'll see how it goes. I think we'll probably get him. We'll probably sack him several times. We'll probably pick him off at least once. Um, he'll get a touchdown pass. You know, Addison, we're always good to give up one touchdown. I keep saying that. We just haven't done it. But, you know, we'll give up something to that receiving core. They're too good. I would be worried about Hawkinson because we have been kind of susceptible to the tight ends as of late. And O'Connell, you know, I was kind of railing on him a little bit ago. That was mainly for the injury and putting Wentz out there. But he will take advantage of our defensive lapses, which is that transition between linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks with the tight ends. That's where we're going to have to be very sharp to keep Hawkinson under control. Otherwise, they're going to throw it deep on us, assuming that McCarthy has time to get the ball off.
Well, quickly, I put the injury report in the chat, Chris, if you want to share it. But they put Matt Nelson on the IR, on August 11th, and he's still out. And he was expected to start along with Christian Darrisaw, who left the game last week and was ruled out for the second half. I fully expect him not to play this week.
Darrisaw?
Darrisaw.
Oh, he practiced today. He'll be there. They interviewed him. I think he'll play. We'll see tomorrow though.
Yeah, he'll end up gimping out of the game. I guarantee you. He was not moving while I watched him.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, by the way.
Exactly. And then Brian O'Neill, who's the equivalent of our skipper, the big hulking tackle.
Guys, you don't feel like it's a Jeff Okudah revenge game?
He's hurt.
I can't believe he's still in the NFL.
He's not going to come back to beat us. Yeah.
I think they put him in IR actually, so I don't think so.
It says questionable for today's report.
Okudah was I still contend injuries crashed his career. He would have been a good player in the NFL. I really feel like he would have, but his injuries just got him behind the 8-ball. He's never recovered. But regardless, he's not on ours.
Keys to the game, Chris. I think our ability to run the football. Jahmyr Gibbs has incredible statistics against the Minnesota Vikings with Flores' defensive scheme, and what they do really well, like the Bucks did, is they stack up 8-9 guys on the line of scrimmage, and you never know who's going to come and who's going to fall back into coverage. What that gives us the ability to do is create those gap them and punch through. And Gibbs' speed, man, he gets a seam, and we saw 22 plus miles per hour a couple of weeks ago, and so I think Gibbs has a big game this week. Second is play action. We just killed the Vikings last year with the play action. They're susceptible because of their ability, what they're trying to do schematically, and that is to commit to stopping the run. And so it gives you Laporta's. And look, we've been talking about JMO, and we didn't get into it tonight. There's some folks out there that think that JMO's a liability. I think JMO's playing his scheme perfectly. I think he's a key to this week's game as well. Create those gaps in between the safeties and the linebackers, getting deep. Look for us to potentially throw the ball to JMO a couple times deep. Amon-Ra on those mid routes is going to be big. What the Vikings do well, and they picked us off a couple times over the last couple of years doing this, is anticipating us throwing to St. Brown regularly, and they jump those routes sometimes. You may remember some pretty nice interceptions where somebody comes off of another receiver to jump and anticipate an in or out route, especially on crucial situations. So I think they'll continue to try to do that. And the Lions obviously are going to schematically pick up on that. So running the ball, making sure that we're getting the ball deep a couple of times to JMO, and then hitting those intermediate routes on the play action are going to be key. Defensively, I think that the situation with their offensive line is such that I think the Lions feast again this week. much like what we did against Tampa Bay. And JJ McCarthy, Dan did a rundown of what he thinks are his strengths and weaknesses, but the guy is not ready for prime time, clearly, especially when you've got an offensive line as banged up as their offensive line is. If they cannot run the football, fully expect him to just take another absolute bashing.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched
And
on the JMO thing. And as we round third here, Dan, quickly, your keys to the game, as similar to what Brent talked about. Your keys to the Lions and the Vikings.
Well, first thing is I want to correct myself. I actually had it reversed. Their pass defense is better than their rush defense. Their rush defense is trash.
Yeah.
They're 24th in the NFL, giving up 130 yards a game. So Brent's key is right on, right? You just run the ball at them. Now one thing is they also, while they may have had success with us jumping routes, they only have 3 picks this year. We've got 7. So, we're top 10 in the NFL. They're 25th, tied for 25th.
Wow.
With 3. So one thing they do, they do get pressures. They do get hurries, but they get average amount of sacks. They've got 15 sacks, 18 sacks this year. We've got a few more. We've got 23, so we're top 5 and they're 15th, but I think the key to the game is what Brent said. We just want to hit them hard on offense. We want to run the ball down their throat, open up our passing game, take our shots in passing. I feel like Morton is still trying to figure out what to do with Jamo. He's tried multiple things, and for one reason or another, last week he got robbed by that crappy PI. Clearly was not OPI. He got victimized by not a bad Goff throw. It was a bad throw, but it was because Goff was getting hit when he threw it, and it kind of came in low. Could he have caught it? Probably, but it was one of those plays. He's most lethal, not on those deep bombs, but on those crossing routes where you hit him in stride and he just weaves his way and just goes. So, Ben Johnson last year was very good at getting him the ball within like 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and letting him, like, how many times did he catch like a 4-yard pass in the sideline and turn into like a 12-yard gain because he stepped around somebody or blew past him, right, tight roping down the sideline. So those are the passes we aren't seeing so far, although the PI one last week was kind of along that vein. I think they'll continue to get him involved. I'm not worried about him.
No.
So overall, I think we're going to run the ball to set up the pass. On defense, we're just going to pummel the ever-living crap out of McCarthy. I don't think they have much of a run game either. It's
those are
looking at
technical
the stats.
terms, Chris.
They can't block.
Oh, I
They
was gonna
can't
say something
block.
else.
That's the problem.
They can't block. They
That's-
average 65 yards a game rushing.
Yeah,
That
their
is
offensive line
30th
is in
in the
shambles.
NFL.
Well, they were
There's
missing
only
their
32
running back.
teams.
They were missing their running back.
He's back, but he's coming off an injury, so we'll see.
I know. But it's a complicated situation, right? We were down to backups on our offensive line, but we had Jahmyr Gibbs and Monty back there, and when you're missing your bell cow,
That's an indictment more on Quessy than anything because he didn't have good depth on his team. That's where Brad made. We talked about this 2 or 3 shows ago. Brad has built a team where he has built out substantial depth to overcome things, and those depth guys, a lot of them are interchangeable parts. They can play, Rock Ya-Sin, corner and safety. A lot of our D-line guys can play either position or any of the 4 positions. They bring guys in that are interchangeable, not just decent depth guys, but they can play any position.
Right.
So you don't have to have the specialist at edge. You don't have to have it. A linebacker, a weak side linebacker. You got 2 or 3 guys that can play that position in a pinch, as well as special teams. So, but yeah, I think we'll run it down our throats. We'll pass attack as necessary. We're at home. McCarthy's gonna, it's not a night game, but it's still 1:00. McCarthy's going to struggle, I think, with the noise. He's going to struggle with his line and struggle with his mobility. So if they can get, was it Aaron Jones? Is that who they have?
Yeah,
I think. So if he can get some movement, but I mean, who's run on us this year? I mean, let's be honest.
We're solid against the run, and
we're solid.
Look, guys, Metellus and Harrison Smith, they are not the most fleet of foot. and they're going to take away those intermediate crossing routes with JMO. So I mean, just an interesting, game inside the game for us to talk about on the post game analysis. But look for JMO to get deep on these safeties versus the intermediate to long crossing routes, I think.
Guys, we've got the chat going wild. We've gone way over time, but a couple of things I just want to make mention. So Alex and also helpful Chase as well, who have joined the chat. We really appreciate you guys joining. And there's lots of talk here about Isaac Tesla being quiet, and I think that's kind of one of those things. Like, ladies and gentlemen, we watched the preseason. We saw this guy, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, he's the next, Puka Nacua or whatever everybody was talking about." And you got to realize, A, he's a rookie. B, he needs reps, and the coaches need confidence that he can run the plays properly. He can play, but does he understand where he needs to be? And he's been given some opportunities for sure. And of course they want to get him the ball. Jared Goff would love to throw 70-yard bombs every, play to JMO and, throw one-handed catches to Isaac Tesla. It's just like what the defense is going to give them. I don't feel like we should be concerned for those players. I think what we should do is instead say, hey, we've got decent wide receiver depth. We've got great talent at those positions. And when we need them to show up big time, when they get single coverage, because Brian Flores' defense can allow for that every so often, then maybe Isaac Tesla.
He caught a touchdown pass 2 weeks ago, didn't he, Chris?
He did. He did. He caught it, didn't he? And he caught it with both hands, I think.
2 hands even.
Yeah.
He reminds me of the Griffin brothers. The one brother had, only had one hand. We now have discovered that he actually has 2 hands. But look, we've got Leaf, we've got JMO, we've got, St. Brown, we got Laporta, we've got Gibbs coming out of the backfield. You've only got so many balls to throw around. And
that's right. We haven't talked about Raymond yet. Raymond could be the guy that feasts because their linebackers are a little bit older. Cashman's bigger dude, right?
Raymond
or Greenlaw. I mean, he's a big dude. Cashman is their middle speed guy, right? Van Ginkel is a rusher. He's hurt too. He's questionable. He left the game last week, so it's hard to say. But I think that you could see Laporta and Gibbs and Monty and hitting this underneath stuff, right? Because those safeties, they may come up, but they're going to have to stay back because they are not going to get beat over the top, right, Brent? I mean, you mentioned it, right? Those guys simply, they cannot keep up with a Jamo or a Gibbs or, whoever. Like, most of our guys are fast. Their safeties are not fleet of foot, so they're going to have to play smart or they're going to get burned.
All right, Chris. I think we could keep going for another hour.
We can. This is what fans do, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't go without highlighting somebody who's always in the chat, and that is the Two Fan. Two Fan says, Gray Main's the best fan show, hands down. Looking forward to more live streaming on location. That pregame hype is electric. Still hoping Chris will pick up that guitar and play us a tune one day. The Two Fan, I appreciate it. Listen, maybe I'll learn the Lions fight song on bass, and then you guys can sing along. No?
And I'm trying to connect with the band that does the concourse.
Oh yeah,
show.
Yeah.
I'd love to get those guys on here and others. But a shout out for Lisa Walsh. She responded to have me saying I'm not sure anybody would like that, but she responded that Dan was cute as a button. Shout out to her. I said, for his colorful language or his physical appearance.
I don't know. I can't speak to the attractive, cute as a button thing, but I can speak to the colorful language.
Yes. And you're getting a very toned down version of me too.
Yeah, trust
Trying
me.
to keep it PG-13-ish.
You almost were there. You almost were there. Excellent. Folks, thanks again for joining us. We go live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is available for replay on all the tubes, wherever you watch and listen. So if you have an audio podcast player, you can absolutely get the podcast as well from an audio perspective. We also do our best to do a pregame, and I don't know, I'm putting you guys on the spot. Are we doing a pregame this Sunday?
Heck yeah.
I'll be here this week.
Okay.
I'll be gone the following week.
All
but I'll
right,
be here
so
this week.
11:30 a.m. Eastern this coming Sunday, we will do a Vikings-Lions a pregame show here live. Much more loose than it is. So like everybody, come with your predictions. We're going to try to get some feeds from down at Ford Field. We won't have somebody live, but we're going to do our best, or I'm going to do my best to try to get some footage and try to have us get all hyped for the game against Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us. We are Lions Gray Mains, and as always, go Lions.
Go Lions.
The Lions.
Busted outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about.